trunk, I open up, I sold my soul a good price.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Nerd Talk podcast brought to you by thedigitalworm.com. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host and good friend John. John, say hello.
What's going on, people?
So ordinarily what we do is we go through 10 topics that we found across the internet that are interesting to nerd culture. But this week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to mix it up. Ben Affleck is out as the Batman, and John and I each came up with our top 5 picks for the next Batman, and we're going to go over them. And we're gonna take turns with this. We're going to do one each at a time, like my 5 versus his number 5, my number 4 versus his number 4. And we're just going to do it like that. And we're going to be open to discussing these actors as well as the character of Batman. I wanted to open by asking you, John, who is your favorite Batman thus far? Like everyone who has played Batman since the beginning of time, who's your favorite?
Since the beginning of time, okay. I think that it's a really hard question to answer.
It's a super hard question.
Because there's a lot to Batman, both in the comics and on film and on animated. I think that iconic voice, you got Kevin Conroy will always be my Batman for sure.
Well, let me break it down a little easier for you. As far as film goes, since we're going over the film, let's just talk about film. Who's your favorite film Batman?
I'm gonna have to go with Michael Keaton, man.
Wow.
That's gonna surprise some people, but
it doesn't surprise me because that's my favorite film Batman.
Fair enough. He just caught like the time frame that movie, the culture of where America was in the late 80s.
I think I've mentioned this before. The original Batman with Michael Keaton was the first film I ever saw in theaters as a kid. This is my very first time going to the movies. Yeah. So, I mean, it's no wonder I ended up where I am today, right?
Well, mine was Nightmare on Elm Street, so that should tell you some stuff.
It tells me you're a classy, cultured individual.
That had very strange parents.
If my mom would have allowed me to go see Nightmare on Elm Street, I probably would have. She was like, it's going to give you nightmares. And I watched it, and I was like, this is a comedy. I mean, it definitely had a lot of comedic elements to it.
That's the best part of the balance of a good horror film. You have to balance trying to scare someone and also making them laugh at themselves.
Which is really the problem with horror films in the modern era, right? They're tryhards. Like, they try so hard to gross people out and scare them with like just filth and nastiness. Like, they don't take the entire genre into consideration. But that's a little off topic. So, John, I'm going to go ahead and let you go first with your number 5 pick for the next Batman. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, so this is going to seem like left field for the first couple of seconds, but I think that John Hamm would be an insane choice for Batman.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you, Matt, has actually seen Mad Men. I watched it years back when it first came out, but the took from just being this guy who was trying to live what he thought was the American dream to realizing the darkness within himself, the darkness within America, and just there's a lot of depth to that character that people don't really think about. I think he could take that to Batman pretty easily and pretty successfully.
He's also what you would call classically handsome, I believe is the term, which is something you kind of expect from Bruce Wayne.
Oh, he's definitely got that chiseled jaw going for him, for sure.
He's the right height as well.
Yeah, he definitely can pull off the upper echelon rich white dude in a way that derogatory, which I think you kind of have to have for Bruce Wayne.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, people who come from money, there's a caricature in America, especially in American like fiction, this absurdity. Basically, a lot of literary class or upper, well, basically, well, a good example in real life is the way Donald Trump acts.
Oh, he's a snob. Is that what you're saying?
This weird, yeah, this weird man-child snob thing that I think that in the comics at least is a playboy kind of womanizer, but he doesn't have that like that snobbish like I'm better than you attitude. You know what I'm saying? I think that Ham could pull off the, you know, fast cars, fast women, very much into like the clubbing, you know, upper crust lifestyle without being like MAGA dude.
Sure, I completely agree with that. And
it would be a hard line to toe as an actor, honestly.
And so he's got some acting chops. Like, this guy's got a pretty nice range. And you have to have a really good range to be able to play Batman, because, you know, Batman and Bruce Wayne are different people. And so you have to have a solid acting range to be able to do both of those really well.
Oh, hell yeah.
And we've seen the acting range from Jon Hamm in Mad Men, but then, you know, he was in Baby Driver as well. I don't know if you've seen Baby Driver. It was a great film. It was an action film, so he definitely showed his, you know, acting chops there. And he was also in Keeping Up with the Joneses, which was like a comedy action film with opposite Gal Gadot and Zach Galifianakis. So he's got the range.
I would label that film surprisingly good, and not like.
No, I completely agree, and I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I did
not expect much from that.
I watched it with my mom, and even she was like, "This movie's pretty good," and I was like, "What did you just say?"
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. To be honest, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm just glad you were the first to admit it, because I would have felt weird if I was the only one. All right, so let's move on to my number 5 pick. Jon Hamm.
Oh, that's great, dude.
That's pretty funny. That's why I started cracking up laughing as soon as you said Jon Hamm. I was like, what are the odds that he was the number 5 pick for both of us? Because we did not discuss this list intentionally.
Exactly. That's insane, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So because we've already discussed it, I'm gonna go ahead and pass back to you for your number 4 pick. Hopefully this is not the same.
I sincerely doubt that this person's on your radar, dude. And that this is one of those, like, I'm gonna say this name, and you're like, you taking this seriously? But I really am. I think that this is something that could easily be a fit. But you have to frame it as this. You got a 27, 28-year-old Bruce Wayne. He's been Batman for 6, 7, 8 months. So basically, you're Batman year one age range as far as, like, you know, the comics go. So you've got some experience. You got, you know, maybe a little more hopeful Batman as opposed to the jaded, grizzled warrior that we see typically. So he's black, which I think would be to piss off some people who take things a little too personally.
Oh my god!
As far as fiction goes,
these comic nerds,
and I
like it gets really ridiculous with some of the racist, misogynistic shit that they say on the internet.
Just walk away at this point, man. I just walk away from a lot of conversations.
So do I. I just ignore them. I usually block them on Twitter if it's a social media thing. Like, I'm not dealing with it.
At this point, it's not worth the conversation. I think
it's 100% not worth the conversation. You're right.
But for me, I think a refreshing look at Batman would be the Batman Year One storyline. Batman is Donald Glover.
Wow, that's an insane pick. I totally would have picked him, but like, I just didn't even think about it. That guy is amazing.
I think he would take the role in a seriousness that a lot of younger actors would not be able to come through with because he's a fucking nerd.
Yeah, I think
comic books and stuff.
I think he's one of the best actors, best young actors out right now, honestly.
People think of Don Glover and they think of the Childish Gambino stuff, but they also think of Community, which is comedy. But he has done some dramatic roles. He's in Atlanta. He was in The Martian, which I haven't seen The Martian yet, but I've heard is a really fucking good film. That's definitely not a fucking comedy by any means. I think that there's some range with Glover that has just not been tapped yet, and I think that he could make a good hopeful but not so much Batman candidate.
When I think of Donald Glover, I think of the phrase raw talent. I don't know if that makes sense. The guy has definitely it's almost like a natural talent, I feel like. He feels, whenever I watch something with him in it, he just seems so comfortable in front of the camera.
Sure.
Something you don't see with a lot of young actors. So I love this pick, John.
Oh, yeah. What's your next one?
My number 4 pick is Michael Pena. I don't think we've ever had a Hispanic Bruce Wayne before. Pena is most commonly known for the Ant-Man movies and being Luis, who's one of Paul Rudd's sidekicks. And Pena has an incredible range as an actor. He was the lead in the newest season of Narcos. The guy is a very hard worker. I mean, we're talking like 3, 4, 5 films a year. And he's probably one of the most over-talented, underrated actors out right now. Probably because he's Hispanic and he gets slammed into a lot of, Hispanic-only type roles. My only issue with Pena is he is a little on the short side to play this character. Bruce Wayne is supposed to be around 6 feet tall, and Pena is only about 5'7". So that's my only concern there. I know he's got the chops.
If we can...
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to interject very, very, very quickly. That if we can buy Hugh Jackman as Wolverine at 6'3" tall, and it's 5'9".
Fair.
Keep going. I just wanted to put that in there.
No, you're right, but I'm just saying for the diehard comic...
This is doable.
For the diehard comic nerds, like, they would say...
but we're already pitching those guys off anyway.
That's fair.
That's fine.
But just in my original list, when I was coming up with it and I was looking for actors, I was going through everything. Just what like, do they have the quote-unquote look for Bruce Wayne Batman at? And I think Pena's got that. Like, he can play a very... he was on a Netflix movie where he was a robot. I don't know if you saw that. I think it was called Extinction or something like that. The film was fairly mediocre, but, I mean, he did a great job. Like, every time I see this guy, he's doing a great job. Like, I've never seen a film with Michael Pena in it and been like, he performed poorly.
Oh, no, the dude's great.
Yeah, he's kind of like, he reminds me of Jake Gyllenhaal and that kind of, I'm going to take everything I do seriously and I'm just going to go hard and really dive into the role. So that's my number 4 pick. Go ahead with your number 3 whenever you are ready. I think we're coming up with some great names here. Hollywood should be listening to this podcast.
Absolutely. All right, so this next one, already played a somewhat similar character in a very popular film. But what you do is, I'm not sure if you've ever read The Dark Knight Returns. If you hadn't, you're fucking up. You need to read this story. It's Batman set when Batman's in his early 50s. basically, back in the day when they killed off Jason Todd as Robin, this is kind of an Elseworlds kind of thing where, what if Batman quit because of that 10 years later, and Gotham's a fucking zoo. The world is on the brink of World War III. Reagan has kind of pushed the nation into the edge of destruction, which there's some corollaries to our current.
Sounds very Watchmen-like.
So I'm not sure if have you read Dark Knight Returns?
I have not.
Right.
I know I'm fucking up.
You at least need to watch the animated film. There is an animated film, extremely well done. So you've got a Bruce Wayne that basically has been idle for a decade, and he gets triggered into reactivating himself, and he starts going back out on the streets, and he's getting the shit kicked out of him a little bit. Because he's not in the shape he used to be, and he's just not as young as he used to be. There's a big difference between someone who's 32 and someone who's 52, even if you keep in shape.
Yeah.
It's just not the same. And to me, that angry, kind of desperate, crazy Bruce Wayne / Batman would be really well served by Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Great pick. Love that guy.
Already did something sort of similar in The Watchmen as the comedian. So it would be actually pulling back a little from that, because he's not quite as fucked up as that character. But
he was fantastic in that role.
Absolutely, dude. He's been fantastic in everything he's ever done. I don't think he's had a bad role. I don't think that there's been a thing he's been in he hasn't. And I would love to see him as the regretful, angry, ridiculously over the edge Batman.
Yeah, I can totally see that, and I completely agree with that pick.
Actually, there's some interesting choices you can make for casting throughout the entirety of that story as well. As Robin, you could get Aubrey Plaza, this chick.
Yeah, I know Aubrey Plaza. She's good.
The super wonky girl who always just says these really awkward, inappropriate things to people, like in real life. The Robin character you have in that story is this like 14-year-old girl who nothing normal about her. She's just super off the wall, and immediately Bruce Wayne takes her and immediately wants to train her, because that's what he does. He just trains children for whatever reason, and I think that would be a really good fit. It also allows for a live action Mark Hamill Joker. It's 10-15 years older than they were. And Joker's always been a little older than Batman. So,
Joker's tough. Joker's really tough to cast, because we compare Jokers, and Jokers over the course of the film history of Batman have always been spot on. Like, there has never been a quote-unquote bad Joker. It's kind of like best, better, good, right? Like, no one's ever done a shit job. Like, I can't think, like, every time I see the Joker and I see someone playing the Joker, I'm like, wow, that's a really good fucking Joker. Good job, Warner Brothers, Hollywood. Like, I mean, people have hated on certain Jokers of the past, but that's just because, you're never going to beat Jack Nicholson. That's just not going to happen. But you can get real fucking close, and I feel like a lot of the other people who've been cast as a Joker have come really close. Mark Hamill is a great actor, and would love to see him as the Joker. And I think a lot of other people would too, to be honest.
What's your next one?
My number 3 is Mustafa Shakir. That name is probably a mystery to quite a few people, but he played Bushman in the second season of Luke Cage.
Bushmaster.
Yeah, Bushmaster. You're right. Sorry. The guy is an incredible actor, great range. He's got the chiseled jaw. He's got the physical build. He's got the height. He's got everything I want to see out of a Bruce man. Bruce Wayne Batman. I think he is very, very qualified for the role. Guy's got a hell of a range. He is an American actor, folks. So everything you saw as Bushmaster was acting. Like, he is a Jamaican American, but he is an American. Like, he does not speak with a Jamaican accent. He was born in North Carolina, raised in Harlem. So this guy, I don't see any negatives with casting him as Bruce Wayne. I think he's got the acting chops to pull off Bruce Wayne, and he's got the build to be able to do Batman really well. And we've seen him in Luke Cage play a very serious role, so he can do it. Do you have any thoughts on him as a Batman and Bruce Wayne?
I definitely could see that happening. He clearly is capable of doing some number of fight scenes. I think there's a physicality about him that people would enjoy to see as Batman. You have that feel to his physicality, which I think would be a positive thing for the role. I definitely could see that being a good film, and kind of maybe be able to explore the character in a couple of ways that you haven't seen in the past. I think that's a solid choice.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. To me, Mustafa's the wild card in my list. Like, he's the underrated actor. He's someone not a lot of people have heard of and know by name. And Warner Brothers has a history of going after A-listers for that role. So he's my wild card. So go ahead with your number 2 whenever you're ready.
Okay, so come with these caveats of you have to be telling a certain Batman story, because there's just so much range to what Batman is, and
yeah, definitely
the things that have been done with the character, things that could be done with the character. And one thing that I've always wished that more films would do, kind of day in the life or pieces, and I think that one thing that could be very good for a Batman film is do a camera single shot 2 hours in a night of Batman fighting his way through the streets of Gotham and one of the bigger bad guys, and then fight at the end, kind of like a cutscene in the video game, but with actual acting and actual things that matter in the story going on, and a real story throughout that. And telling a real story with those restrictions would be a really interesting thing as well. But if you did it that way, it literally doesn't matter who actor Batman is, because you can just take a very good stuntman whose physicality meets the qualifications of Batman to be reasonable, and then you just need a voice. And it would mostly probably be monologue for something like this. And for that, then you could finally technically have a live action Kevin Conroy Batman. That's the voice of Batman. In my head, when I think of Batman talking, it's always going to be Kevin Conroy for me.
That's the guy from the 90s animated show, right?
Yeah, the 90s animated show, Justice League Unlimited, the cameos they did in the Superman cartoon. He's Batman for me. And to be able to do and have him involved, I think would be just the best fucking thing ever.
So are you thinking something kind of Sin City-ish almost?
It would probably be along those veins. You could even film it in black and white if you wanted to. It could be more of a noir kind of thing, more Batman using his hands, Batman using acrobatics, and then you just get him thinking about how he feels about the city and why he protects it and why it matters to be Batman. And I think that the little things like that go a long way with fans to make the mythology of Batman a more culturally prevalent thing, which I think.
My number 2 pick. This is not going to come as a surprise to anyone, especially you, John. Ben Barnes. I don't think there's a lot of explanation required as to why I think he would make a great Batman. One of the hottest young stars in Hollywood. Great actor. He's done the acting. He's done the action stuff. He can handle it. He's got the height. He's got the jawline. He's got the classical handsomeness. He's got the kind of swagger to be Bruce Wayne, just in everything he does. Yeah, I think Ben Barnes would be great. And for those of you who don't know who Ben Barnes is, you saw him in in both seasons of The Punisher as Billy Russo, the bad guy. The way he played that character, it was hard to not sympathize with his situation. And I think at times Batman is almost as much of a villain as he is a hero. And to side with Batman all the time, you need to be able to sympathize with what he's going through. And I feel like Ben Barnes can do that. And I think he can do it really well. Do you have any thoughts on Ben Barnes, John?
I definitely never would have put that together. I think that's a really interesting idea. There definitely are a couple of times he looks at certain characters in certain ways, and just the way he reacts to revelations as he goes through things, and it's hard to make these points without fucking up the story for somebody, and I'm trying real hard not to do that. Good at these like wounded quizzical looks here and there.
Yes.
Or what you're talking about. And I think the stood warrior poet part of Batman is probably where you're going with this. Nothing that I can see that. I never would have come with that pick myself, probably 1,000 years, but that's something I could see for sure.
He has also publicly stated that he wants to play Batman. He says he says he wants to do something kind of different with the role. Like he wants to be a different Batman than people have seen before, and that's kind of got the wheels turning in my head there.
Gotcha.
So John, go ahead with your number one pick. Drum roll.
Well, Matt, you actually already know this, man. But I think that the best person on the planet right now, Batman, in any context at all, animated, live action, television, serial, I don't care. I want to see this dude as Batman, is Ricky Whittle. I don't know that there's a young actor. This guy has range. This guy has ability to take a role to a different level. He's got the physicality. He's just a
how tall
big,
is
bulky
he?
Dude.
I know it doesn't matter. Is he? Okay. He's a Brit too.
Do that. And don't care. It's
no,
fine by me.
I just think it's.
You'd never know in any of his roles where he's playing an American that he's not an American.
That's what I'm saying. Like I had no idea. Like he comes across as a very American actor to me. Like yeah. I would like Tom Holland.
Google, he's 6'2", by the way.
Well, I think you probably hit the nail on the head here. I think if we're gonna hand out awards for best pick, you probably just hit it. That guy is amazing. Like he performs so incredibly well. He's everything I've seen him in. I just love the guy. I'm just like, holy shit, dude. Like he's young. He's built. He's handsome, and he's a phenomenal actor with a great range. Like you really great pick, John. Good job there.
And one thing I think is interesting about most of the people we've talked about, more your people than mine. Mine have been a little on the older side in general, but most of these people could easily have 10 years of Batman in them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Most of the guys we're looking at are late 30s, early 40s. I'm not sure how old Ricky is. If I had to guess, I'd say early 30s.
My age. He's 37. He's my age.
Is he? Okay. Wow, he doesn't look it. He looks like he's mid 20s.
He's just taking better care of himself than I have. That's the big difference.
Touche. I mean, it's not like I do a great job of taking care of myself either.
Hey man, you live hard, you end up looking like you lived hard.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of an understatement, right?
All right, what's your last dude?
All right, my last pick, not quite as good as yours, I'll admit it. You were definitely the champion of today's show, but my last pick is Dominic Cooper. Another British guy. Ben Barnes is also a British guy. Not that any of that matters, but it's, I don't know, something about, like, a lot of British actors have slid into these American superhero roles and done a fantastic job. I do want to point that out. Like, it's, when I say they're British, like, it's not because I got something against Brits playing these roles. It's because they're all doing just an amazing job. They're just knocking it out of the fucking park. Every single one of them. And Dominic Cooper is my number one pick. Another Brit. Also playing an American superhero character on a television show, which is Preacher on AMC. I'm not sure if that show is still around.
I believe it is.
But in that role, he was, he's kind of, that dark, brooding kind of superhero, He's kind of negative, kind of pessimistic, drinks a lot, smokes. And I can totally see this guy playing Bruce Wayne. I mean, he's got that part of it just down. At least, I mean, as far as the Batman goes, he's got the Batman aspect completely down. But because he's got, the good looks and he's got some range, he's been in some very non-superhero type roles. I think he could play that Playboy Bruce Wayne very well too.
Well, here's something you may not realize. He's also Howard Stark.
Wow, I did not realize that.
Oh yeah, no, he's already played the rich inventor, Playboy millionaire guy. He was in multiple Agent Carter television show. If anyone who hasn't seen that, and I would not be surprised, it's one that slipped past a lot of people. That was criminally underrated show. It's very, very good. Go back and watch that. Anyone who hasn't seen it. So he has an important supporting role as Howard Stark in that show. He's in a couple Iron Man films as Stark as well, of course. And he does the super rich dude just really well.
So what do you think of him as a pick?
I think it's a great pick to play Batman or a character like Batman. So there's a character in DC, the Sandman. And it's not the Sandman like Neil Gaiman's Sandman. It's a different Sandman. It just has the same name as the character. The character's name is Wesley Dodds, and he comes from a very similar background to Batman, in that he is a rich inventor guy who has a lot of money because of his parents. He's more of a Silver Age, Golden Age hero who solves crime with a gas mask and a gun that basically puts sleeping gas in the air. And I think, to me, he's more of a Dodge / Sandman actor, but I could definitely also see him doing the Batman and doing it justice.
I don't know, like, you kind of deflated my sails a little bit, like with
not intentionally.
With your number one pick, and I was just like, I don't even want to talk about my number one pick now.
Oh man, no, this dude's a great actor for sure, and I think that he probably would be the best Bruce Wayne, which is what leads me to the idea of maybe Wesley Dodds.
Fair. So yeah, those are our lists. I think they are great. Honestly, I think I think I think we could probably do this every week, just coming up with 10 top dudes that should play this next superhero or this superhero, or be a lead for this role or that role. Like, I think we seriously just, I don't know, man. Like, we did a damn good job here. So I gotta say, if I'm gonna give your list a grade, I'm gonna have to say A plus, just 100% A plus on your list. I look at mine as probably a B plus.
You had some good choices there. I think. To me, like I think the one thing that DC could do, that DC does pretty well, but could do a little better is. I think that these films should come out more often than they do.
I've been reading about this online quite a bit. DC is just not kicking out the films they want to kick out. Like, it's almost like they're trying so hard to play the competition game with Marvel that they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit as far as getting the ball rolling on new projects.
Well, I think that it's really easy to forget the fact that Marvel Studios is owned by Disney, and Disney is a formula company with formulas for things, and when they work, they continue those formulas forever until they stop working, until it breaks. And Warner Brothers, animal than that. Warner is who owns DC, of course. They're a very different animal than that. Warner Brothers is more of the giant type of company. Things move here and there. Things happen here and there. People have there's their own autonomy within Warner Brothers, and from a creation standpoint, that is often a very good thing. But from a standpoint of consistency, the consistency is never going to be there, and that's just something that we're going to have to accept from the DC cinematic universe. People who are just kind of doing their own thing within Warner Brothers, as opposed to the lockstep that is Disney and my way or the highway kind of deal with those guys. And that's the bit. Then that's why we're seeing less films. That's why we're seeing films with a different, really.
It almost feels
That's
like,
not always a bad thing. I just want a little more content. I
feel like I think they need a little more consistency within their universe. If it's different if they want to, if they're looking to do like a hard, Elseworlds kind of thing. Like, if they wanted to do Gotham by Gaslight, honestly, that's going to be a very different story with different actors. But as far as the universe they have now, with like Momoa as Aquaman and stuff like that, I feel like they really need to hammer out some consistency with those storylines if they're going to continue to use the same actors in the same roles. I feel like they kind of keep switching it up a little bit on us, which to some degrees is probably okay. But for me, I'm just like, I just want to see something a little more continuous. Like, you don't have to come out with something continuous multiple times a year, but just every once in a while come out with something continuous to let us know, hey, this is an overall story and this is how it's progressing.
I think that the assumption for that is the DC universe shows.
You're probably right.
I think right. that's how we're supposed to take these things. These things are clearly basically in the same universe, even though the actors are going to be a little different. But looking another way, you kind of have to remember this stuff is, how has Marvel always attacked continuity? Marvel stays in Manhattan in dimension/universe. DC has always been, editorially, we'll figure out what world it's on later. And that's always been their editorial.
That's fair.
For DC. And so that's why before Crisis on Infinite Earths, you had thousands of continuities, literally, within the first 35, 40 years of DC's existence. Crisis, when they took it down to just a few Earths, and it crept up again, and they did New 52, and then they did Flashpoint, and now they've done the new one from a couple of years ago. This name always escapes me because I thought it was a stupid name, in which they said everything that's owned by Disney, and it's just all a bunch of different alternate Earths, which is my preferred way of looking at the DC universe. I like the fact that on any given world, there could be a world in DC where you're Superman. And that's the view of anyone who happens to be listening. Anything is possible in the multiverse that is DC. Crossovers now of Batman and Donald Duck, and it worked.
I definitely like what they've been doing on the CW, as far as their multiverse is concerned. I think they've done a really good job. I don't like all of the shows. I am getting pretty hyped for Batwoman. To me, The Flash is probably the best, in my opinion.
The show Arrow?
Oh, Arrow.
I can't get into it. Caveat. First season was great. It was really good. First season was really good. And then I started watching the second season. I'm like, this is...
It's a soap opera, is what it is.
It certainly is that, which is fine. Comic books are basically soap operas for nerds. That's just the case.
Sure.
But it was a little too soapy for me.
It was. I completely agree. But for me, I strongly, for whatever reason, I just cannot get into Supergirl. I tried. I gave it like a season and a half, and I just cannot do it.
Well, I think that if you don't like it by the first couple episodes of the second season, it's just not going to be for you.
Yeah,
I definitely at least suggest to watch the crossover episodes with the other characters.
I do like the Legends. I think they bring some humor in there, and they do some interesting stories. So I like that one. I like Flash. Arrow is okay. Not a huge fan of Supergirl. Black Lightning is surprisingly good.
That show is good. I like Black Lightning a lot.
And I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. I really would like to see them bring back the Constantine show. Probably not going to happen.
I know it's something that the actor wants to do. The people who make the Arrowverse have expressed a desire to make that show a thing. My understanding of the current season of Legends is that he plays a huge part of his old school storylines within that show for this season. Hopefully the ratings on that show are good enough that they can show. I'm still a little angry and did Constantine how they didn't give him a full real season, because they were clearly ramping up to the Spectre, a DC character who's never gotten any live action screen time before, and the amount of disappointment I have with DC based on not going through with that, letting the Spectre happen, very frustrating to me.
I am not 100% aware of who he is. Although Constantine is one of my favorite DC characters, I haven't read a lot of his books. That's something I should probably remedy at some point. So not really sure.
Visually these days.
Don't really know who the Spectre is. I apologize for that. All right, so what do you think, John? It's about time to wrap it up. I mean, we could probably talk all day about DC if we really wanted to.
Probably so.
But let's go ahead and end the show for today. This is the Nerd Talk Podcast, brought to you by thedigitalworm.com. We are your hosts, both Matt and John, and we'll see you next week with 10 new topics all about nerd culture, and we'll discuss them. We'll have a good time. So we'll see you next week. Take care.